Hello. I have a revelation that I want to share. When we look at in the Gospels, we see where Peter was given the keys, the command to build a church. And further on, we know Paul was an enemy of the church, God's people, and was converted. And from his conversion, he was very, very prolific in delivering the gospel. And we see in Galatians 2 where Paul and Peter was at odds. And from then on, we know that sometimes the doctrines of the church can sometimes not serve the purpose that it's supposed to or it is intended to. Why I say that? Because I realized that Paul had a very much conviction to deliver the gospel to the uncircumcised, or better term, the Gentiles, as Isaiah declared, while Peter was more into maintaining his Jewish culture. And it came as a conflict between both persons. In Galatians 2, we see that. And Paul further declared to Peter that God has given him the gospel of uncircumcision while he was given the gospel of circumcision. Why I say that? It's very interesting. The Lord has given me a revelation of the gospel. What is the gospel? He was ministering to me because my situation is that, unfortunately, for some of us, we don't fit in. And we are part of the demographic that is very, very poor. We have to make a choice. We have our surplus is not that, and it don't afford us to spend to buy luxury. We spend and we buy the necessities. But I realize that it often brings that resentment and despise that Jesus been through. And you can find that in Isaiah 53. The picture into Jesus' life. And I was listening to Bobby Shuckle there in California. He's very interesting and I liked him. He tells us to study, as well as Isaiah said, line upon line, precept upon precepts. Here a little there and a little there, you will understand the Bible. And I got to realize, when the Lord began to minister to me about the poor, the initiation to Israel was not to be poor. However, the Lord facilitated their sin and persons became poor. And he gave them a law how to deal with the poor. And throughout the Torah, you could see the Lord plead how they deal with the poor. And he was very soft-hearted and repentant towards Israel, how they deal with their poor. Even today, in today's society in Jamaica, the poor is very treated as stepping stone, as a ladder for the rich. But come to what I'm trying to carry across to you is that the Lord has a tender heart towards the poor. And I'm going to get to it right now, straight into it. I was reading Isaiah because the Lord had laid upon my heart, as I said, about the poor. And he began to minister to me about the poor. And I knew that my calling was really from Isaiah 61. And he sent me to Isaiah 61. That the Spirit of the Lord is upon you. He has anointed you to bring good tidings to the meek. And then I said, Lord, where did I read that? I know I read that before in my Bible study throughout my years. And I went and I searched and I found out this is at Luke. And in Luke, it said the same thing, but the emphasis was different. It really zoomed in on a demography, which is the poor. It said, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, which is Jesus talking, because he had anointed me to preach good tidings to the poor. And I was very shocked at that revelation of the Spirit that showed me, said, Casey, the gospel is really come for the poor. And he further carried me to Matthew 5. He said, Casey, blessed are the poor, for there is a kingdom of heaven. So poor people must realize that the reason why God had sent his son to seek and to save that which was lost was really for us to go and have a place in heaven, as the plan of the Lord has always been. So we are part of that provision that Lord made for us in heaven. The poor, mainly zooming on the poor. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for there is a kingdom of heaven. And then in Matthew 11, also it speaks specifically of how God did heal the sick. It tells us he healed the sick. He did all kind of miracle, and especially at the verse it says, as you read, I would like you to go and read all of it. Matthew 11, it says, and the gospel was preached to the poor. So we know that God has a special ear for the poor. And when we look at the life of David, a God of man's own heart, I can't leave out David. I will never leave out David out of my studies. David said, I am poor and needy, emphasizes being poor. And you find that in various Psalms 40, 69, and 70 and other places. So the poor had a special place in God's heart, even now. So I'm going to say to you that the mission that Jesus came was really for the poor, and he finished it in St. John 17. He said, Father, I have finished the work that you have given to me. Lift up his eyes to heaven. I said, I finished the work. And we know that he specifically singled out that, Father, I have kept them and none of them lost. Have you lost anything? I can assure you, and I can recommend Jesus. He had never lost anything. Go and read it for yourself. In St. John 17, he said, I have not lost none except the son of perdition. Put your life in the hands of God. Because in Matthew 10, he said, no man can pluck you out. And that is my recommendation to somebody today. Let him keep it. He will not lose anything. Love you.